live from the center of Great Britain, Lincolnshire to be exact, the director of HBO's new miniseries, The Casual Vacancy, Jonny Campbell. Johnny, great to have you aboard.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
How did you get involved in this miniseries, the first one based on a different novel from J.K. Rowling?
Well, the usual way. My agent sends me a script. I find it intriguing. You go for a meeting. The ball starts rolling from there.
Would you say that this is, in your directing for TV career, the most unique assignment you've gotten?
The most unique assignment. I suppose that your last one's always the most important one. It's the one that you feel everything's been building towards. This was certainly a daunting task, not least because of the prominence of the author of the source material, who's arguably the most famous, one of the most famous writers on the planet currently. That was that focused the mind a little bit. But coupled with that, just in terms of the story itself, it's creating a world with so many characters, bringing this fictitious village to life as closely to the way that the village is described in the novel and in the screenplay as possible is a huge challenge. It was daunting on several fronts.
Another reason why it was daunting, and you sort of inferred it just now, is that unlike Harry Potter, which took place in a magical fantasy world with lots of action, lots of environment, lots of special effects, The Casual Vacancy takes place in a very idyllic, very serene town, and a lot of the situations are thought out, not acted out or actioned out, if you will, by the main characters.
Yeah, that's right. Certainly in the novel, and it requires a bit of work on the part of the audience to sort of like with any drama, to try and get inside their heads, read their thoughts, interpret their behaviour and fill in some gaps, and that makes it hopefully a more rewarding experience than a drama that's just served up on a plate with a very simplistic narrative. There's a lot of characters to keep on top of. It's actually, the story is about the weaving together of all these characters to form the tapestry of both Pagford and of this story, as this one seemingly tragic event it ripples the way through everybody's lives. I previously on other projects, even my last project was a thing called In the Flesh, which was on BBC America, and that was set in a sort of post-apocalyptic northern town in England, with zombies being rehabilitated into the community. So when you're working on screenplays that involve a level of fantasy, it's a little bit convenient when you're, trying to work out what might happen, because, you've got a bit of poetic license. Whereas here, we not only had the source material to bear in mind, but also you're dealing with real people with no magic wands.
So you have a 500-page book. You have 3 hours to bring it to life for us, the public. So how did you and your writer, Sarah Phelps, take this book, which I mentioned has a lot of mindset, a lot of attitude, a lot of behind the veneer, behind the curtain kind of activity, if you will. How do you translate that into what people will see on HBO this week?
Well, Sarah Phelps, our fantastic screenwriter, was the person that had to sort of grapple with that task initially, of course. She was the one that had to sort of digest those 500 pages, work out what for her as a writer was the sort of the key core story that she wanted to tell within the confines of the book, because the book and the adaptation, that they live in a sort of parallel universes. Really, they're not competing with one another. They're both different mediums, and so. As Jo Rowling herself pointed out to Sarah, look, this is a different thing. Over to you. She kept an eye on it, but very much at arm's length, offering support and comment occasionally along the way. But on the whole, she saw it as a different thing, and I think relished the fact that it could have another life as a different thing, not just transposing everything verbatim that's in the book. So Sarah had that task. She had, as you say, 500 pages of really dense, sort of characterful and insightful storytelling. That in order to start with this plot, and she did, she made some bold decisions and bold changes to adapt it.
It is now past 8 p.m. in England time, and that's where we find Jonny Campbell. He is the director of the Casual Vacancy this half hour on Tomorrow Be Televised. It's HBO's newest miniseries. It's based on the famed J.K. Rowling book, her first one for adults, and it airs in 2 parts on Wednesday and Thursday night. 8 p.m. Eastern Pacific time both nights. The Wednesday night is 2 hours. The Thursday night is 1 hour. And as I mentioned, Jonny's with us live from Lincolnshire, England this half hour on Tomorrow Be Televised. Jonny, did you have any conversations with J.K. before you decided to direct?
I think I'd already decided to do it at that point. We met Jo very early on, and to talk about, show her a few location pictures, show how the world was coming together, and some of the casting photographs, and also to get a measure of what the essence of it was for her and what was important in the story, and it was a very valuable experience. It was a bit like meeting the Wizard of Oz, to be honest. Because she's quite an elusive figure, always very, very busy all the time, as you can imagine. But also because of the way the process worked, I'd very much decided to do this project irrespective of who was behind it, and then I had to take a big gulp, and I thought, actually, this is not going to be a project that sort of hides in the corner. It's going to get a lot of attention. So it was great to meet her early on and get a sense of why she wrote it and what were her thoughts behind it.
Where did you find Bheard? And once you did and started production, did you use any of the townspeople in the program?
Good question. Bheard was incredibly difficult to find. If anything, it didn't exist. And that was one of the great challenges of this. It wasn't about finding one place that would be suits all the locations, and it would be very easy. We'll find that place, and there's our Bheard. We've arrived. This is it. It's exactly what what J.K. Rowling imagined when she was writing it. Clearly, she'd drawn on a lot of different details from around the area where she grew up in the West Country. But as a filmmaker, you're also looking to find locations which are visually eye-catching, which serve your purpose as a storyteller, that link buildings to one another in an interesting way. So we actually comprised 6 or 7 different Cotswold villages, along with some locations near Bristol, in order to make up our Bheard.
Talk a little bit, Jonny, about the cast. One person that I think people on both sides of the Atlantic know is Michael Gambon. He's an extraordinary actor. We've seen him in so many different roles. Many people may know him more by face than by name. What was it like directing him in his role?
It was fantastic directing Michael. It had long been a dream of mine to work with him, and I'd come very close once before when I was trying to cast a movie and wanted to get him to play a particular part, and I just badgered him, and in the end just challenged him to a duel. Left a little package at the stage door when he was on in a Pinter play, I think it was, with a phone number, and I knew that he was very interested in as a hobby in antique sort of dueling pistols. So I thought, right, well, nothing else for it. You either be in my film or 100 Paces. And sure enough, he rang. We went for a cup of tea, but that time it didn't come to anything. So I challenged him again this time, and we met on the set. Absolutely, he's a legend, and always coming up with something unexpected. Hugely entertaining character for all the other cast. He kept them very amused during the whole shoot.
Now, when it came down to a lead female character, and there are so many parts because this is a book about a town, how did you and your scriptwriter decide we're going to focus on one female to really revolve the action, the plot around, and who ended up playing that person?
Well, again, when Sarah first looked at the story and went up to meet J.K. Rowling, the thing that got her the job was saying, look, for me, that the beating heart of this story is Crystal, is the teenage character of Crystal, who has a drug addict mother, a young brother who she's trying to basically be a surrogate parent to, as well as her own mother. And so that was the central arc of the story that Sarah wanted to focus on most, and that was very much in tune with what J.K. Rowling was excited about in her pitch, and that was a challenge because to find that 15, 16-year-old actress, or even an older actress playing younger, was going to be a task, and we were incredibly lucky. We did a huge trawling casting sessions all over the place, but then this tape came in from Abigail Laurie, and we all looked at it and looked at each other and thought, blimey, that's pretty amazing. We better meet her really quickly. And it turned out that it was her first ever audition that she'd ever done. I mean, she was at an acting school, but she'd never been in anything other than a school play, and her instincts were just phenomenal. So we thought it was too good to be true. So we workshopped her with Keely Forsyth, who plays Terry, her mother. Just to see how that whether it was a bit of beginner's luck, but it wasn't, and she's an absolutely stunning actress.
We're speaking live from England with Jonny Campbell. He is the director. He's had a lot of interesting experiences. We'll talk about those in a little bit. And his latest experience is The Casual Vacancy, which you can see in 2 parts on HBO, Wednesday night, Thursday night, 8 p.m. The Wednesday night is 2 hours, and the third part is 1 hour. That's Thursday night, HBO. 3-hour miniseries, 2 on the first night, 1 hour on the second. Jonny joins us live from Lincolnshire, England this half hour. On tomorrow will be televised. Jonny, you've done a lot of different things in your career. You've done episodes of Doctor Who. I understand you've done Shameless, the British version. I'm curious whether you like doing episodic TV more than, let's say, a miniseries like Casual Vacancy or a series for BBC America like In the Flesh.
I've been very lucky. I've done some fantastic series. I've been able to work on some fantastic series television in the UK, and that gives you a huge variety. But there's nothing really like telling a story from beginning to end if you can. That is more rewarding, I find. And sometimes you can do that in a series as well. One of the episodes of Doctor Who I did was called Vincent and the Doctor, written by Richard Curtis, and that almost is like a standalone episode. You don't need really to have seen the one before or the one after to follow that story, and that goes for a lot of Doctor Who stories actually. So ultimately, as a filmmaker, you kind of want to. It's not about being a control freak. It's just about wanting to feel that you've told a story from beginning to end. And as I say, sometimes that can be possible within the confines of a series. Many episodes of Breaking Bad feel like the story in their own right. But with things like Shameless, I did a Christmas special just after the first series of Shameless as well, and that in a way felt more exciting to do a sort of feature-length special, a standalone thing.
Is it a badge of honor to direct Doctor Who? And why do you think this program has become one of the longest running series in all of television, anywhere in the world?
Well, I think apart from the fact that, time travel itself allows such variety of storytelling, from fantasy to meeting historical figures, and just the sheer nature of that is it can always keep reinventing itself. But somebody somewhere at some point came up with the genius idea of recasting the lead character at a certain point in time in their story as part of the story, the regeneration, and so you end up with this iconic figure who's 900 or something years old, and who just keeps reinventing. It's like kind of like an inbuilt in the program of the series that he keeps reinventing himself, and that's kept it fresh over the years.
Before we get to a call, who's your favorite, before you directed the Doctor Who episode, who's your favorite Doctor Who?
Before Matt Smith, who is now my favorite Doctor Who, I'll be honest with you, it was Tom Baker.
Mine too.
That's who my doctor was when I was growing up. Yeah.
That was my first Doctor Who, and still my favorite. He had a very big flair that still reverberates. It's amazing, like 30 years since he did that role, 30, 40 years since he did that role. It's amazing. All right, let's take the call. Hello, you're on Tomorrow Be Televised. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Simon. It's Rick Webb calling from Philadelphia.
Rick, you are connected across the pond with Jonny Campbell from the Casual Vacancy. Go ahead.
Hi, Johnny.
Hello.
I wanted to ask, you had just mentioned about, with the Casual Vacancy, working with some first-time actors with some big roles. And I know in the past you did Eric and Ernie as well, working with children. So specifically, like with the workshopping that you just mentioned, I found that kind of fascinating. And like, how do you work that out with people who've never acted before, or children, and you're kind of an intense director, so without intimidating, but getting great performances out of them? Like, how do you work that out?
Well, I think first thing is to say that they may not have acted before professionally, but there's something about them that they have a talent. They have a talent to act. Often you have to work with people that don't have a talent to act. I'm not talking about actors necessarily, but although there are some. But it's always about, I think, just giving them a sense of confidence in their abilities, concentrating always on the storytelling and the characters that they're trying to be, and sort of you adapt to each person differently, really. The workshopping is very useful. It was very useful in her case because by the time she got on set, and again, everything that she was doing was the first time she'd been on the film set. It was the first time she'd, acted alongside some of our greatest thespians that we have in Britain at the moment. And she was just undaunted by it. She's a one-off, Abigail. We were incredibly lucky, and she makes me look really good because she gives in a fantastic performance. But I was really just nudging her. She sort of flew pretty much on her own, and I think that's also part of the role of the director is you've got to recognise when to give a note and when not to bother because it's all just right. So it's a rewarding part of the experience on Eric and Ernie, which was a TV movie about Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise, Britain's most famous, arguably most famous ever comedy double act. We had three different ages of this double act. They got together. They met when they were like 11 during the war. And so there were three sets of Eric and Ernie's, and that was very important to workshop with the children particularly, so that they could also take on some of the mannerisms of our older actors, and therefore there was a sort of synergy through the story.
Oh, that's brilliant, great insight. So thank you for that, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking out the new miniseries.
Great. I hope you find it worthwhile. I hesitate to say joy because it's a strong story. It challenges the viewer to sort of partake and ask questions of themselves. So it's very darkly comedic, thought-provoking as well.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to it. So thank you very much. And thanks, Simon.
You're welcome, Rick. And stand by. We'd love to have you on the second half of the show. We get into Your Call on Netflix. I think your thoughts would be quite good for that.
Okay, I'll hold on.
All right, thanks. Rick, we're a good friend from Philadelphia. Johnny, before we let you go, it's coming up on 8:30 your time in England. Have you had a chance to see the American version of Shameless? And if so, what do you think?
I haven't watched very much of it, to be honest. I started to watch a bit of one of my own episodes, if you like, and it was just identical shots of what I'd done. So I was a bit sort of miffed about that, and didn't really want to follow it. I think you're part of something. There are so many things you've got to watch these days, because it felt like it was almost the same dialogue being played out. It felt like I'd sort of been there and done it, really.
And there you go. The Casual Vacancy airs in 2 parts, Wednesday and Thursday night this week on HBO. It's 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific time both nights. 2 hours on Wednesday, 1 hour on Thursday. Check your local list for where HBO plays in your area on cable and satellite. And visit HBO.com for more information online. Jonny Campbell, director of The Casual Vacancy. Thanks again for joining us and spending the time, your prime time, your time for me. It's a pleasure to have you here. Good luck with the show and good luck with upcoming projects you've got doing directing for TV. It's a real pleasure and treat to have you here.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you.
You're welcome. All the greatest. Take care. Jonny Campbell joining us live from Lincolnshire, England.